Welcome, welcome everyone. It's so glad to sort of see y'all. I know we can't really see you, but my name is Monique. I am the marketing director here with the College of Education at the University of Texas at Arlington. I'm fairly new. I've been here about 13 years, but mainly we're just here to have an informal chat and talk to you about one of our programs. And I've got with me a couple of guests on the line. I want to start with Mr. Manuel Alonso. Manny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Manuel Alonso. I'm the academic recruiter for the College of Education. I recruit for undergrad as well as some graduate programs, and that's my intro.
Awesome, perfect, perfect. And lastly, not least, we have Dr. Ericka Roland on the line.
Well, hello, my name is Dr. Ericka Roland, she, her, hers. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies, and I co-coordinate with our Division of Student Affairs, the Interdisciplinary Leadership minor.
Yes, I'm so glad you started off with the pronouns. I actually have those in my signature. I don't always say it in these meetings, but I think it really just kind of sets the tone for who you are as an academic, who you are as a faculty member, as a researcher, as an expert. You know, I know you because just through the College of Education, but you know, I know we probably got some folks clicking who they're like, who is this? She looks kind of cool, but I don't really know who she is. And so just tell us a little bit about yourself from like a student perspective, what you might want a student to know about you.
Yeah, one of the things is I'm a first generation student from undergrad all the way to my PhD. And I come from South Florida. So I'm not a Texas native, but I'm learning to adapt to this extreme heat. But I think one of the things you need to know about me is that I really believe in social justice and talking about and having a conversation around different oppressions and privileges that can affect the ways in which we interact with everyday life. So not just how we treat other folks, but how do we conduct our business online and social media, what we watch and how we watch it, what we value and what we claim not to value. And all that plays a part into how we become citizens in a community as a whole.
I love it. And I think that's a really good segue just to talk about the program itself. The program in mind, I can't remember if I said the name, sometimes I forget. It's the Interdisciplinary Leadership minor. There's also a certificate available. So do you mind just giving us a quick snapshot of, that's a lot of big words, a quick snapshot of what that means?
Yeah, so our focus is really on leadership development and thinking about how leadership can help transform our world. Whether you're thinking about it from a career perspective, if you're looking at supervising, positional power, those kind of things, or if you're thinking about it from a community aspect, nonprofit, or even in your student organizations, right? We want to engage you no matter your major, no matter where you think you're going to go, no matter what your understanding of leadership is, we want to engage you in thinking about how leadership can be a change. And one of the things that's really big in this program, it is not so much about the leader. We talk about leadership, which is the action of leadership, right? So what are you going to do? How do you enact that? And so we really try to pride ourselves on having these conversations and thinking about leadership from different perspectives. Like how has Indigenous folks thought about leadership? How has LGBTQ people thought about leadership? Non-Western ways of leadership. So we really try to open up your understanding and even imagination about what leadership is and what it can do while having fun exploring those things.
Wow, I have so many questions just from that one little blurb that you said. I love talking to faculty because you really get to see like their passion and their interest, and it just makes me so curious. But before I do that, I want to ask the question I get the most often because we are a college of education. And so a lot of times students are wondering, do I have to be an educator? Do I need to be wanting to be a future teacher? Like, do they have to be within our college in order to pursue either of these program options?
No, that's the interdisciplinary part of it, right? So we welcome anybody and everybody to come and sit with us and have a conversation or be part of the program. And again, I want to iterate, it doesn't matter what your major is, even if you're going into marketing or criminal justice or nursing. We believe leadership is important no matter what you do, not just from a professional career readiness perspective, but also from an interpersonal perspective. So everybody is welcome, but also the College of Education is just the coolest place to be. And so why not? Why miss the opportunity to come hang out with us?
I like that so much. So you talked a little bit of just about how leadership doesn't always necessarily start just with the leader. I think you said it better than that, but that was kind of what you said. What does that look like in the classroom, right? Because I think sometimes we're like, how do I learn about being a leader? And then she said, it's not just about the leader. So like, what does a class look like when students are taking these classes with you?
Yeah, so our program has 3 core courses. Our 1330 is an introduction to leadership and diversity, inclusion, and equity. And so, and the other class is advanced theories of leadership. And then we have a capstone class that gets you to think about research and community projects. So what this looks like, one of the things we pride ourselves is on the pedagogical or pedagogy approach. So there's a lot of group discussions. We bring in social media, we bring in videos, we do a lot of pop culture things to make it everyday life. And we zero in on the action piece. We do talk about the leader and what's the role of leader development. But one of our ways is to kind of disrupt the status quo that in order for someone to enact leadership is they have to be a leader, or what we have believed in the West is that you have to be charismatic. It's kind of characteristics and situated in different types of bodies and identities. And our job is to really disrupt that. And so one of the ways of disrupting that is that we bring in a lot of examples, everyday examples. We encourage you to bring in your lived experience, not just from a career perspective, about your student organizations, what you may do in your community, whether that's church or schools, or what you may do with your siblings. We encourage you to bring all that to the table so that we can kind of unpack those things about the action piece of it.
So we're bringing all these different things from real life. And I think that's so important because, you know, we all have so many things that we're walking around with and carrying in it. So it's not like leave yourself at the door and just come and sit in a classroom and just learn. But you're really, to me, it feels more like an immersive experience. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, it definitely is, because on top of the leadership piece, another component that's very important to us is to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so we will have uncomfortable conversations around racism, sexism, all the isms, right? And what that means and how that socially and politically have shown up and dictate how we go about our business. So it's important that we create a community within these classrooms to be able to have some honest conversations about how leadership can really disrupt and create justice for all, right? And what that means. And that may mean that we need to unpack some previous beliefs, or we may have to grapple with who we are as people and how we've shown up in the world. And so part of that immersiveness is to create that community so that we can do that work. So that we can have those honest conversations, that students actually walk away with something tangible that they can use in, again, whatever interaction. Again, our belief is that leadership happens everywhere, anywhere. It doesn't mean that you have to be the CEO or the president of organization. You being the member or being a classmate. We practice leadership that can also show up in the classroom.
You know, that's such a good point, because I think, you know, we've all been in higher ed for a little bit, and so we've all been working for some time, but I think there's a little bit of a shock for students when they first graduate and they get their first job, and maybe they did a lot of leadership stuff in high school and maybe even in college. And so they get out into the work world or wherever they're going next, and they're kind of like at the bottom. I think some people kind of struggle with that. And so I love that you're kind of helping people learn how they can be leaders no matter what stage they're at. So I really like that. One thing though, you said twice, you talked about having these honest conversations. How do you do that with so many different types of students? And I'm sure the talks probably get a little heated. Like, how do you really manage that and make it an okay space for people to be and have these really hard discussions that nationally, even globally, we really need to have?
Yeah, again, I think this is the time for us to bring in pop culture and what's happening, right? To allow us all an entry point into the conversation. We know that people have different lived experiences and have different beliefs on these things. And one of the things is that we're not here to indoctrinate folks. We're in here to talk about the material resource implications of what oppression does. And so a lot of this is making it plain as part of everyday conversations, part of our as as we think about social media as who we are, but also think about how we are being socialized to believe, to think about different identities, right? And so a lot of that is based on what we bring in, how we think about our curriculum. The other piece is that we have 2 graduate teaching assistants, and they are just finishing their master's degree and being out in practice in the workforce. So they are bringing in this kind of perspective of teaching. We said we like to do more circle talk and more dialogue and no lecture, because again, we want this to be a personal and community piece. So I think us bringing in these graduate teaching assistants, but also partnering with the Division of Student Affairs who host these conversations daily. And this is part of their job to get engaged and rooting us in kind of this pride of being a maverick, of being able to talk across differences, but also to create a space for everybody. And so they actually bring in that resource as well. And so I guess altogether is that we are equipped to have the conversation. We have resources to have the conversation. But also, I think one of the great things about our program is that we're pretty upfront about, we are talking about leadership from a critical perspective or within a diversity, inclusion, and equity perspective. So we usually get a lot of students who are interested to have that, to engage in that conversation. And so it is very much a shared, a collective community. We invite students to bring who they are and what they know and their curiosity. And we bring the same thing. We bring our knowledge, our resources, and our curiosity, because even as instructors, we don't know it all. We also fall into being oppressive and being part of the system. And so the idea is that our students also have things to teach us of what it means to enact leadership from an academic perspective and from a teaching perspective.
You actually just answered my next question, because I was going to ask, I think sometimes, at least for me personally, if I step into a space that I'm not familiar with, that's not my background, that's not my experience, sometimes I worry, am I going to mess up? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to do the wrong thing? And so it sounds like y'all are very intentional about really just creating a space where, hey, it's okay to be who you are. And I think you said, even you as the faculty member don't have all the answers. So I love that you said that.
I think one of the things I do want to iterate is we don't kind of go right to the hard stuff right away. Do a lot of things with understanding language. What does that mean? Understanding our own positionality. And what I mean by that is, who am I? How does my identity show up? How do I make sense, because of my identities and my experience, of what leadership is? What is diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's a hot word, especially in the time that we're talking about CRT and racism and transgender. Like, we will take our time and go through those pieces. And so again, we're really intentional about engaging students and even ourselves of getting down to every component of understanding what does it mean to enact leadership for social change.
That's good. So you mentioned the faculty. I actually realized I had never asked this before. Are there other faculty that teach these courses, or is it just you just got it all?
Well, currently in our department, I am the only one, but our graduate teaching assistants who are current PhD students in our program, teaching those classes, and also my colleagues at the Follett Leadership Center. And their director and assistant director, associate director will also engage with us. And so again, we get an opportunity to kind of step outside of faculty being the only one that can engage in these conversations, and also bring in some of our student affairs practitioners to have this conversation, to be part of it. But also too, I mean, a faculty member may come across this video. If you're interested, we are interested in engaging other folks. I've had conversations across women gender studies. What does it look like for us to cross list or be partnered with them? What does that mean for the honors college? Also for the College of Business certificate. So when I say interdisciplinary, it's not just what the students bring, it's also as a co-coordinator is really having those conversations across different majors and different colleges about ways that we can diversify not only who teaches our courses, but also the content of our courses.
Nice, nice, nice. I always have more questions, but Manuel, I know I talk a lot. So did you have any questions? Was there anything? I know you interact a lot with students, and sometimes they don't know what they want to do. They're not sure what's next. I don't know if there's any questions that you have from us from either a personal experience, personal perspective, or either just a student like recruiting perspective that a student might want to ask.
Yeah, I did come up with one question. So if I was going to get let's say a business degree, a bachelor's degree, and I wanted to get this minor, it would just take those 3 courses like that.
So yes, in theory, yes. In the sense of first of all, it's a great question. For our minor, it is 3 courses with us in the core, but then you have 3 or 4 electives that are usually, we usually will take what electives or courses you've taken in your major. Those electives have to pertain to leadership, some type of leadership, diversity and inclusion, social justice, and that I've had students take a politics class or a environment class. So we really work with students individually to figure out how can their current courses that they're taking for their major can also satisfy our elective courses in the minor. Our job here is to really engage you in those 3 courses and to have you be intentional about and become aware about how leadership and diversity, inclusion, and equity, and even social justice shows up in your everyday work about what are you being prepared for and career-wise.
Nice. And so it sounds like, a student doesn't have to have it all figured out, and they don't have to sign up day one when they're a freshman, right? Like if you're a little bit down the line and you're like, you know what, I want to add this as a minor. I don't have a minor. I want to add it. That's a possibility.
Yeah, we on our website, we have the information there and a form. Hopefully coming soon, we'll have forms that you can fill out. But the most important thing is to talk to your major advisor and have that connection. I am always available to have a conversation and to walk through your program of study to see what works and what doesn't work. And so any of those, and willing to talk to any advisors about the process, but reaching out, having a conversation is kind of the easiest way to go about making sure we get you in the program and that you're successful in the program. So whether you're thinking it's my first year, I am coming out of, I want to stay involved, I want to talk about leadership, great. If you are in your final years and you're like, I would like to have this, great, right? We can meet you wherever you are and what your needs are. We can definitely have a conversation around that.
Good. And I think I have maybe 2 more questions. There is a certificate. What's the difference between the minor and the certificate, and how does the student know what's the best option for them?
So the certificate is actually less credit hours. It's really, I believe, the core curriculum and maybe 1 elective. And so if you start the major and you're like, I just don't have the space, nor or you graduate early, what have you, the certificate is just less hours. You still get the same content. What's the biggest difference is you take less electives. And again, if you are pressed about time, or if you're like, I just want to dip my toe into this, the certificate is the way to go. And also, again, if your major doesn't have space for a minor, a certificate's way to go. And this is something, again, that you can put the certificate and the minor that you can put on your resume to signal your skill set around these kind of components.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because I'm not an HR person officially, but I have done hiring. And I think employers are increasingly looking for people who have backgrounds like this. And so to be able to say, I have a certificate in this, and these are the things that I have explored. These are the things that I'm starting to develop expertise in. I never call myself an expert in anything, but I think that's so useful. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely, and again, I think something that you alluded to at the very beginning, our current social political landscape of businesses asking, they want to diversify their portfolio or want to diversify the people, or really are hiring folks that can work with diverse people and lead diverse people. So I think being able to talk about that along with your experiences gives you an opportunity to enhance your profile as an employee, but not just thinking from it's. I feel kind of icky about talking about employment with the social justice, but even so, thinking about the ways that you can transform your community, whether that is again through brunch happy hours or community service. Again, we are a society that's looking to get back together, to be back in community. What does a citizenship looks like? What does that mean for us as society? And then having the certificate, having the space to reflect and to think about these pieces, hopefully will impact you and benefit your community, no matter where you may go, and not just for employment. Although we want to be helpful, we know that you're here to do some career advancement, but I also want to plug in that we think that it will transform your communities and the spaces that you're part of by having this knowledge and engaging with us.
I'm glad you said that, because you never really know where life is going to take you. And you might do some volunteer work, you might do some work with your church or your neighborhood. You might want to start a neighborhood group, and goodness knows you get who you get for your neighbors.
Right.
Or even, your apartment home. It doesn't have to be like a traditional like house. It could be apartments. It could be, you could go overseas, and just, I think having these experiences just equip you with a lot more preparation. And so even if it's not like your physical resume to apply for jobs, you've got it on your personal resume as you connect with people.
I do want to add that those folks that are thinking about post-bachelor experience, when they're thinking about PhD programs, master's programs, regardless of the discipline, MBA, this is a great opportunity to talk about who you are and what you can bring as a community member, not just from a action standpoint, but also from a theoretical, from a knowledge acquisition perspective. And so we're really trying to provide and be a space that you can use whatever you get from our program, in the minor, whether the certificate, that you can use this, whether you're thinking about graduate school or thinking about going into the workforce, or thinking about how you live your day-to-day life. And so we have created a curriculum and even an experience in the classroom that helps us think about all of these intertwining pieces about who and what and how you will be, not just for the future you, but also for the present, what your interactions are like on campus, outside of campus. We honor those as well.
I like those, or I like that, sorry. And I think my last question, the Follett Student Leadership Center, we didn't really talk about them in the beginning, but they're obviously a big partner. Talk to us about that relationship and how students through this program, whether they do the certificate or the minor, they're really able to take advantage of the resources in a unique way that the Follett Center has for students.
Yeah, the Follett Leadership Center hosts a lot of programming, but also dialogues, and offer student leadership opportunities. And so one of the things that is coming up for them is they are having their leadership retreat coming up in the fall, which is a big thing of really coming together, thinking about your leadership style, thinking about getting with other students that are excited about leadership, getting you connected to campus. They really provide that resource to helping you acclimate, or not acclimate, but also get involved on campus. And the biggest relationship for us with them is that they will spend a lot of time with you developing the leader. And we come in with the leadership piece, and we both kind of intertwine backwards. So we believe it's a great complement to each other. on giving what they want to do and how they want to do it in their programming, but also that we cannot be remiss about thinking about who and what is UT Arlington, right? And so we are a diverse community. We have different needs, different spaces, and the Follett Center is really committed to making sure that they are providing resources and programming and development and professional development for students to engage in that, to be able to get the best out of this community. So it is a great partnership. Whether you start with us, come to the minor first, and then kind of go over to their research, to their retreats, their conversations, or grab a shirt for them. I get shirts for them. I go and pick up swag all the time, so I act like a student. Or whether you start with them and you see a graduate teacher assistant, or you see me part of these programs. Again, it's very much a partnership, very much a sort of effort going both ways in the minor, but also in their programming.
I love it. I loved it. And the program, you can learn more about it on our website. I do want to ask before we close out, Manuel, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask? He's giving me a head shake no. And he's a little bit quiet, but I guarantee you that if you reach out and connect with him, he is super knowledgeable and very happy to help. And what he doesn't know, he's still a little bit new. I think, what are you, about 7 or 8 months here as of this recording?
8 months.
8 months. Okay, perfect. We're getting there. So we're both pretty new. We don't always know.
And we're office mates. So
that's right. Y'all are. Yeah.
So we get to see each other. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to him, and him and I talk all the time. If you need like the hookup about what's happening, he's connected. And I enjoy having him as an office mate. So,
and I will include at the end of this email, I include Manuel's email, Dr. Roland's email, and also just our general inbox, so that you've got different ways to reach out to people. And if for whatever reason both of them scared you and you just want to email the general inbox, you can do that. Dr. Roland, any last minute like parting words that you want to say?
I think most importantly, I really hope students will come and engage with our minor and our certificate, and even the Follett Leadership Center, to really begin to talk about how leadership can be part of the social change. I think it's important that we begin to talk about that, and begin to talk about that y'all will be the ones making decisions, and leading us into our next iteration of civility. And so we welcome you to bring those questions, those curiosities, and your knowledge, and all of you to this program.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining and just for listening to the session. You made it to the end, so give yourself a pat on the back, because that takes dedication. If you're on YouTube, hopefully you sped it up just a little bit so you can get through it a little bit quicker. Although I think 30 minutes to learn about a program that is pretty phenomenal is a good use of time. If you do have questions, like I said, I'll have Manny's email at the end, Dr. Roland's email, and our general. Feel free to reach out. Reaching out does not mean like you're just guaranteed committed. It's no pressure. We just want to make sure that we can support you and answer those questions to find out if this is the right option for you. This program is housed within the College of Education in our Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. If you do want to learn more on your own, you're like a little bit like, I don't want to talk to these people just yet, you can go to uta.edu/education. And from there, you can navigate to our degrees and certifications page. And from there, you can either click on our undergraduate programs page, or you can click on our certificate pages. Either way, you can find it and find lots of good information on the website. Thank you all again for joining. We're so happy to see you. If you're looking at YouTube, we'll have these links in the bottom of the, I forget what you call it, the little description thing. We'll have those links there. But anyway, thank you all again for joining, and I hope you all have a lovely day.